Did you like snakes on a plane? Well then, how about some rats on a train? Which fittingly is one of the many alternative English titles for this Chinese genre film. Is it a horror movie? Is it a comedy? Is it a drama or all of the above? And most importantly, is it any good? Hi there, it's Micha. Join me for this video if you like to find out. China, sometime in the early 20th century. A group of people get on a train, unaware that the country's rat population has developed an appetite for human flesh. And that they are everywhere, including the train's ventilation. In the midst of the events, we find a father with his 3 daughters. After he tried to warn the passengers, he is just ridiculed for being afraid of some rats. But those who laughed at him soon will find out that this is no laughing matter. After that initial chaos that costs half of the travelers their life, the survivors realize that those who are bitten now face a deadly infection. After his daughter, a medicine student, pinpoints the disease, her father, a member of the government's health services, knows where to find the needed medicine. At the nearest stop, a small group of volunteers joins the man on his retrieval mission. But the way there is dangerous, and the train will only wait for 2 hours before taking the uninjured to a safer place. Will they be able to find the drug and make it back in time? Okay, that was a weird movie for me. It is entertaining but had a lot of issues of various kinds. Let's start with the effects. There were some solid CGI scenes and some scenes where they used actual rats. Those were quite convincing and, surprise, were the ones making it into the trailer. Some other effect shots looked a little bit off, while others were just subpar. Nothing too bad, but the overall effects work was quite inconsistent. Some scenes even looked as if they were rendered at a lower resolution. Really weird. However, inconsistent really is the best word to describe the movie, because next up is the tone. It starts out as a horror flick, but then there was one scene where I thought, oh, I get it, that is a horror comedy. But no, it wasn't. There is some comic relief here and there, but it wasn't meant to be a comedy. Therefore, I'm not sure if that scene was maybe just unintentionally funny. Even if not, I wouldn't be surprised, as after going back to horror, it more and more threw in some drama elements, to the point where it became a full-blown sappy and sentimental affair. People were sacrificing themselves after barely trying to stay alive, some for no apparent reason, all underscored with the most whiny music imaginable. Those dramatic moments are then undercut though by the weirdest statements those characters could possibly make in those moments, trying to drive home some message of morality. I won't mention them all, as that would spoil the plot for you, but one guy who turned himself into a human exploding device mentions being a criminal. So he is not afraid of some rats, before detonating himself and some of the rats. Wow, redemption by self-sacrifice, one of my least favorite movie tropes. In another scene, the whole group has to perform a dangerous task, so no one is moving, even though that inaction would result in certain death for all of them. Then one of the daughters has to full-on cry and hold a motivational speech that goes on way too long, so that the group finally does the obvious thing. Of course, again accompanied by the stagiest music possible. In a nutshell, in the first hour the movie never really decides what it wants to be, before it becomes a drama in the last third. Saving grace is the fact that the acting and the camera work is pretty solid, when it doesn't get too close to the faces of actors with glued on beards. where you then can even see the outline of the adhesive foil. The characters and the plot around them also appear too conveniently constructed. There is no reason given why the father takes his 2 daughters with him, but we learn that his oldest child is estranged, yet coincidentally on board of the same train, as the fiancée of a soldier whose father is a high-ranking member of the secret police and basically the only person already aware of the danger the Reds are posing. How about that? However, that fact doesn't really lead anywhere. We never learn what that guy's intentions were. Was he on a mission as he brought a bunch of explosives with him? What was his plan though? Or was he just trying to get his butt to safety? Apparently just the latter, though there was no clue where that safety would be, as the Reds were everywhere. Another thing that led nowhere, the Reds are afraid of direct sunlight. Are they vampire rats? Even their bite marks looked like being made by a vampire, but there was no real follow-up on that. It was mainly a plot device so that the characters have a way around the rodents when the screenplay asks for it. And it often wasn't clearly visible, at least for us, the viewers, if bright areas are safe or if they were only indirectly lit. On top of that, there was a scene where they had no issue at all with the burning sun, again with the inconsistency. There were many more plot points that led nowhere, like a bunch of brothers obviously planning something shady, but we never learned what that would have been. I could go on, but let's keep it at that. 2 last observations. First off, even with all these plot issues, the movie managed to develop the main characters enough for us to be invested, while making it clear who will be just obvious cannon fodder, or here more accurate, rat fodder. However, due to the aforementioned shift into drama space, there were some twists in that regard. There's one character's demise though that stood out for the fact that the camera lingers on him waiting for the Red Pack to arrive, while singing a song to himself that was meant to make us sad. Yet that character previously had maybe 1 or 2 minutes of combined screen time at best, not really enough for us to be engaged enough for it. The last thing I noticed is that the character dynamic of the main family is pretty similar to that of another movie I recently reviewed, Crocodile Island. In both movies we have a family that lost their mother, a father estranged from his daughter due to his mistakes, fighting for her attention, while ultimately the daughter is the one who has to ask for forgiveness. Will be interesting to see if that is just a coincidence, or if I may encounter that same trope in even more movies in the future. I will let you know, but if you already have some insights into that, please let me know in the comments. And with that being said, let's get to the rating. Like I said, this was a weird one for me. There were so many inconsistencies, yet the movie still managed to entertain and engage us in the first hour, followed by some letdowns in the sappy remainder. It distinguished itself a bit from the other Chinese creature features I recently watched by having a period setting and by the creatures being rats of normal size, while most other movies turned their critters into gigantic versions. Also, the vampire angle could have been very interesting, if that would have led somewhere. There were many nice ideas, though only a few were developed enough to actually land. Where does that leave us? The first hour I would for sure rate with maybe 6 out of 10, while the rest was a 3 at best. Considering this, I'm rating the entire movie with 4.5 out of 10, which also mirrors my overall gut feeling. Give it a go if you like creature features and if you can accept the issues I mentioned. What about you? Would those issues be a reason for you to pass on this movie? What are your favorite critters in a creature feature? Are rats among your top 5? Whatever you like to share, let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, feel free to like, share or subscribe. So much for now, see you next time and thanks for watching. In the midst of the events, we find a father with his... Was he on a mission? As he brought a bunch of explosives with him, who will be just obvious cannon fodder. The last thing I noticed is that the character dynamic